fact is, drug wars and all this kind of stuff. Virtually all killing is done. The left is a very dangerous group. I know. I come from the left. And the reason is they believe in controlling people's lives. And when you believe in controlling people's lives, you devalue them. People become less important. Your agenda becomes more important than people. You don't mind if people have to get erased for your agenda. Now, do all leftists go to that extreme? Of course not. Okay? But the left itself is a cauldron. Boiling over, it's dangerous. And when I look at people like the president, like our attorney general, basically telling the cops they've got to watch themselves and be careful and use restraint, what are they saying? They're saying that to some degree or another, the cops are the problem with what happened in Ferguson. The cops are the problem. No, they're not. People resisting arrest and attacking cops is the problem. I'm not saying, and when I say that, I don't say that cops are all perfect. Of course not. They're people. But look at the pot that these people are stirring. They're providing intellectual cover. They can say, well, I'm not involved, and they can even, and they on the left can even say, I'm not involved, and I even tell them, hey, be peaceful in your protests and all this. Yeah, but then you go in and tell them they're justified in their anger. And at least in the case of Ferguson, they were not justified in their anger. They were wrong. And you were telling cops in Ferguson to show restraint because what they might do. And then you wonder why people feel okay about rampaging and burning down buildings. And the mayor of New York wonders why all these cops turn their backs on him. Hey, they were right to do so. He was telling his son to be worried if he reached for his cell phone in his pocket because that might provoke a cop. And that might be dangerous around police because his son is biracial. It's time, and I'll finish with this. It is time we start calling out these leftist leaders. And I don't care if they say be peaceful in your protests. Okay? It is time we start calling them out for adding validity to the protests at all. Because when they do that, they are stirring a very dangerous pot, a boiling cauldron, because they are stirring the left. And the left is violent. And the left is where a lot of killing comes from. And they are giving validity to things that have no validity. And because of that, I will call them out. I think we need to do it more.
Absolutely. I think that's something that we definitely are seeing more. But again, it's also about being measured and remembering how to do it. And that's something that we've already discussed that we need to get better at. But certainly these people need to be called out. Another thing sort of in that line of thinking is, we've talked about hands up, don't shoot. We've talked about all of that, the kind of misleading messages, the kind of stuff that sort of swirls in the aether and people get upset about it, and the next thing you know, you see LeBron James having this on a T-shirt, whatever, or you see the Rams doing the hands up, don't shoot. This does happen on the right. It happens frequently, and it leads us to our next New Year's resolution: source everything, please. This is just something that way too often. I know we've beat this horse just so much here on the Refinery, but make sure that you track back any story that you find, any story that gets shared to you on Facebook, anything that pops up in your feed. Before you share it, click on it, find out what it actually has to say. If it says, naval officer or Navy general, whatever, Navy admiral, creating a coup, starting a coup to overthrow Obama, chances are that's not a real story. Just, maybe it might not be a real story. Please go through and make sure that if it says, as Felicia, constantly talks about, as we all know, or stuff that sort of alludes to a rumor or anything, make sure that you check these things out, because when you share these stories and they're not true, and people click on them and there's a bogus story there that has nothing to do with the title, or a bogus story in general, sharing stuff from the Daily Current or from any of the other parody sites, and they're so tricky. It's tough. It's tough to figure out what is a parody site and what's not. You need to go that extra mile and do it and find it, because it is so devastating. And what we said before about the rage treadmill, this is another thing. It becomes so incredibly hard to overcome these stories. Obama is putting people in FEMA camps. Obama is taking away our gun rights. Obama is whatever. Going through all of those stories, please source before you start sharing. Source before you start outraging, because it is not helpful. It is hurtful, and it just drives me personally crazy. So for my own personal sanity, please source your articles before you share them.
Well, and don't fall into the trap that so much of the media has fallen into this year. In fact, there were a couple of articles about how, the story of the year is how the media became less about the facts and more about the narrative, where it seems that the journalism industry has decided to prefer any kind of story that will advance a narrative, and whether the story is true or not becomes irrelevant. And even if the facts of the story in the first 24 hours, they will continue to say, well, that's okay, because there's something similar to it, and it really matters that we need to continue talking about the conversation. The whole thing started with the fake but accurate Texas National Guard story from Dan Rather, and it's gotten so very much worse. I've seen some folks on our side do it when they advance a story that is accidentally from one of those parody sites, and rather than correcting their initial post, they'll say, oh, well, I guess so, but it's probably true somewhere, and it's really important to discuss this issue anyway. You know what? Really, just edit your post and say, sorry, this was a mistake, and change the conversation and start over. Delete your post. Because you're representing yourself and conservatism to all the people who read you. When you're on social media, you are an author, and are you going to waste the credibility of your authorship by perpetuating myths, falsehoods, and irresponsible journalism? Because you're a journalist.
Rolling Stone. Don't be that guy.
Yeah. Rolling Stone, absolutely. And I love how Ryan, on our private chat here, when you were talking about Daily Current and some of the spoof satire sites, Ryan wanted to make sure that we all understood Daily Current, The Onion, MSNBC. These are satire sites that really should not be taken with any credibility, because it's a spoof. They're not real journalists.
So can we take what do you do? I, a lot of the time, will point out some of those sites like MSNBC if they have no credibility left. So when someone cites them, I really will point it out. Like, look, they have been caught in so many lies. ABC News, same thing. They've been caught in so many lies. You can't really use that as a source. Find a new source. Now, is that?
I wouldn't do that, because it makes you seem super biased. It makes you it puts you almost in the same sphere as the faux news guys.
Yeah,
that's
true.
kind of what I'm thinking.
So what I would do.
But making fun of MSNBC is good times, y'all. It's good times.
Yeah, absolutely. What I would do is, if there was something objectionable. If there was something objectionable in the article itself, by all means point that out, and make sure that you mention how the article is itself misleading. So that's something to keep in mind.
But yeah, don't get into the whole genetic logical fallacy of
no,
you're destroyed because of the source. That's just silly. I was just making fun of MSNBC, as was Ryan.
Exactly.
We knew they're not a satire site. The Onion really is, though.
As is the Daily Current.
Yes.
Now, I mean, we're close to the end of the show. I want to. We've got two more. We've got two final resolutions to get to, and they're very much related. And these are things that I've just been so aggravated with since before the Cromnibus, but certainly since the outrage because of the Cromnibus. We talk about Trey Gowdy, people shouting and screaming about Trey Gowdy needing to be primaried. Of course, he needs to be primaried because he voted for the Cromnibus. Yeah, we should really get on that. Get on that primary Trey Gowdy. Making idle threats is a huge peeve of mine on the right, and we do it all of the time. Mark Levin, I'm an inch away from leaving the Republican Party. Really? You're an inch away from leaving the Republican Party? Okay. Yeah, great. Thanks. I should be so lucky. And I'm sorry. I do not speak for the Refinery. This is my own personal opinion. I do not speak for Free Radical Network with these comments. This is my own personal opinion on this. And yeah. And no, Mark Levin has done some great stuff for us and has a very engaged group of listeners.
The look on your face when you said engaged. People, go check out the YouTube.
Sorry. We tend to make a lot of these threats. Oh, if Boehner's the Speaker of the House again, I'm going to, I don't know. Oh, these people need to be primaried. And it's not just from people who are legitimately pissed off about Boehner or about whoever, McConnell. That's great. I don't have a problem with you being pissed off about Boehner, McConnell, or whoever. Please be annoyed, be angry, be irate. I don't mind that. But make sure that you follow through with what you're talking about. If you aren't, if it's primary season and Boehner's up for re-election, and you aren't moving yourself over to Ohio, to whatever orange godforsaken district that Boehner comes from, if you aren't donating money to whoever it is that's running against John Boehner, if there is anyone who's running against John Boehner, because John Boehner got to where he is not by being a bad politician. He's been reelected a bunch of times. It's not a fluke. I'm sorry. I hate to tell you this. This happened with Eric Cantor. They can be unseated. It's not a thing that we just are cursed to deal with for the rest of eternity. You can primary John Boehner. You can make threats to primary John Boehner. Just follow through with it.
And there are fulcrums that you can use and levers that you can use to move anybody. No one is entrenched so deeply that they cannot be removed, but it must be done strategically. Cantor didn't go simply because the country was upset with him. Cantor had strategic mistakes in his district that people made him pay for. And go there. Incite that, deal with that, make sure you have a better replacement, that you're getting an upgrade, and that you're not just going to replace them with the first name that comes along. But it is entirely possible to do it if it's done strategically. What we see are people emoting and ranting and being upset and not having a productive, again, we're back to that, not having a productive outlet for that. Go find a productive outlet. Go find a way to help someone. Vet who you're going to go up against them intensely, though, because they are going to get chopped up and spit out by the experience and the incumbency and the team that's there. If you're going to take on someone, go all the way and do it professionally and do it well. And it's not just that. It's all the threats that we tend to make. We talk about what we'll do, whether we'll stay home or whatever. Let's not shoot ourselves in the foot. Let's be strategic. And if you have 20